and policy organ of the European Union.
And back in Kenya, KDF yet to issue a statement after military logistics helicopter crashed in Buna, Wajir North on Monday, where it flew to deliver relief supplies to residents affected by floods.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Cafe this lovely Tuesday. Well, it's very rainy here in Nairobi, but we still get to enjoy a hot coffee. Mine is coming later, don't worry. My name is Fred Indimuli, and it is exactly 34 days to Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year.
In advance. Yeah. Well, it's good to have you right here on Morning Cafe this 21st day of November 2023. And of course, on the other side, we'll be having a conversation on matters fintech mobility. Like, could you imagine 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that it would be no longer the traditional way of doing taxis, and we're now at Uber, the likes of Bolt, the likes of InDriver, the likes of Little Cab, yeah, all that conversation and the future of just matters fintech, even in terms of mobile money. That is the conversation we'll be having at around 8 a.m. So do stick by for that. And of course, our social media handles are TV47 News on X, TV47 Kenya on Facebook. The hashtag is Morning Cafe. I'm Flora Limuki.
I'm used to Stanley Nyaringita. This is where we definitely tell you what is happening in the 47 counties. We'll be telling you all that in our county diary, just to take a look at what is happening and give you a brief on what to expect today. But first, to the top story.
Our top story now, the Harambee Stars on Monday night got back on track their 2026 World Cup qualifying campaign by beating Minnow Seychelles 5-0 in Abidjan, Ivory Coast. Michael Olunga scored a brace, while Masoud Juma, Rooney Onyango and Benson Omala scored one each. Now, the win means Kenya has 3 points in Group F, same as Burundi, but with a superior goal difference of +4, while Ivory Coast, to beat Gambia 2-0 Monday evening, topped the group with 6 points. Gabon, having beaten Kenya and Burundi, has 6 points too, but has an inferior goal difference compared to Ivory Coast, to boast of a massive +12. Kenya's next matches of the campaign will be in June 2024 against Burundi and Ivory Coast, respectively. And I think this is the cue to applaud Harambee.
Oh, yes. 5 goals to
hata museme nini, a win is a win.
A win is a win.
Point tatu ni point tatu. Well, let's take a look at today's diary before we get to the dailies.
Well, on today's diary, that particular trip by President William Ruto, he had traveled to Germany yesterday, and this particular trip, well, he's expected to go to Germany and also France. So expecting that today. He was in Germany yesterday, so he'll also be focusing on strengthening ties between Germany, France, and also the EU. And I believe he's also expected to address the EU Parliament on the same. Well, back home, the Departmental Committee on Sports and Culture will be meeting today and tomorrow for consultative public hearings, and the committee will be meeting a couple of stakeholders, including Safaricom, including the Kenya Revenue Authority, and including a number of ministries, which include the Ministry of Interior, the Ministry of Sports, as well as the Betting Control and Licensing Board, as well as the Council of Governors, well, among others. Today is also World Television Day, by the way. So back in 1996, the United Nations General Assembly declared November 21st, which is today, World Television Day. So the UN recognized television as having an increased impact on decision-making, as well as being an ambassador for the entertainment industry. Another key highlight for today, KCSE 2023 exams that are ongoing, and today we do expect Basic Education Principal Secretary, that is Belio Kipsang, to supervise the distribution of these particular examination materials at Msambweni DCC container, and thereafter address the media. So at about, right now is about 6:09 a.m. So in a few minutes actually from now, about 6:15 a.m. So that particular exercise should be ongoing at the moment. We'll be giving you live pictures of this if we get them moving on. Our teams are on ground in different parts of the country on this particular bit of matters examinations. More to come from around 9 a.m. but first to politics of wool, as Standard says it.
Yes, let's take a look at the dailies this morning, and we start off with the Standard. Politics of fuel, that's a big headline on the Standard this morning. Opposition leader Raila Odinga has renewed his call to that the G2G oil deal is between private entities and not the Saudi government. He has called for the resignation of officials involved in the deal and a probe by the ESCC, Auditor General and EPRA. But MP says Parliament has documents. A story is on page 6. Still on the same window Treasury used to get money to finance oil deals. These are special reports still on the Standard. The Finance Ministry is said to have invoked Article 223 that gives it powers to spend money and seek parliamentary approval later. Through this, it is said to have allocated Ministry of Energy money that was not in its budget. That story is on page 4, special report. And politics of fuel is the other story. Those two stories are linked, both on the front page of the Standard today. The other big highlight on the front page of the Standard, intrigues surround exit of Kenya power boss. The story is on the Financial Standard, page 6. On the top strip of the Standard this morning, Aviation Authority reawakens Ruto's Western land ghosts. The story is on page 10 of the Standard. On the international front, where hailed for conceding election defeat. In business, World Bank to give Kenya 1.8 trillion shillings in loans, aid. And in sports, Australia bats its way to greatness. Those are the stories given prominence on the front page of the Standard this Tuesday.
Well, and let's have a look at the Daily Nation. The headline there, underwater. Yeah, and Weatherman wants Kenyans to brace themselves for even more rains in coming days. And pictured there is just someone trying to maneuver through the flooding areas. And record rains have pounded several parts of the country over the past week, leaving death and devastation in their wake. 20 people dead, more than 80,000 families displaced in 33 counties drenched. Tourism has also been hit as floods submerged coast hotels. SGR cargo has been delayed, while towns, estates and villages across the country have been marooned. And El Nino is here and the toll is climbing. And that story is on page 4, 5, 6 and 7 of the Daily Nation this morning, of course, showing how enormous that issue is. And as Azimio resign, Raila tells CS Chirchir and CS Ndungu of an oil deal. And Azimio leader Raila Odinga has called for the immediate resignation of Energy and Cabinet Secretary David Chirchir and his National Treasury counterpart Njuguna Ndungu over the government-to-government oil deal. Mr. Odinga further demanded that the government tables evidence of an existing government-to-government deal and of Kenya having paid for the fuel in Kenyan shillings. And that is the story on page 10 of the Daily Nation. Let's have a look at what we have on the right strip of the Daily Nation. It's a miracle baby. transfused while in womb, born healthy. And for Melodious Mora, the journey to motherhood has been one of pure heartache and agony, 6 years and 5 miscarriages until yesterday. That beautiful story there is on page 3 of the Daily Nation. This morning, away from that, keyboard's 29 children contest will in fight over 16 billion wealth. Another story on the right strip of the Daily Nation, fuel and electricity prices to go up on proposed April levy. Yes, that is what we have on the Daily Nation this morning.
Tuangazie gazeti la Taifa Leo, taarifa kuu pale mawaziri kichinjioni. Na kulingana na Taifa Leo, asema kuwa duru za kuaminika zinasema wakuu wa wizara hawalali wakihofia Rais Ruto atawaangushia shoka. Mabadiliko katika vikao vya hivi majuzi baina ya rais na mawaziri yafichuka, ishara dhahiri kuwa baadhi yao watafutwa kazi za jitokeza. Mengine katika ukurasa wa pili umechapisha pia picha ya mawaziri hao pamoja na Rais William Ruto na naibu wake Rigathi Gachagua. Pale chini Taifa Leo imefufua lile taarifa la maafa ya Shakahola kisema kuwa miili ya watoto 131 yabainika, zaidi ya watoto 184 waliangamia. Mengine katika ukurasa wa pili. Tuangazie vidokezo vingine pale chini, jinsi msaidizi wa Sakaja alivyotoweka. Afisa wa DCI eleza mahakama Osman Khalif alitoroshwa kwa pickup. Masuala ya michezo pale, FIFA, Algeria, Gabon na Misri pazuri. Timu hizo zashinda mechi za duru ya pili za kufuzu kwa kombe la dunia la mwaka 2026. Tuendelee pale juu, masuala ya siasa ni taarifa sawia na lile la Standard. Sakata ya mafuta, yani politics of fuel. Raila ataka mawaziri wawili wajiuzulu, aongo mtata mkono akisema serikali ilihusika katika sakata ya mafuta ya bilioni 17. Mengine katika ukurasa wa pili. Kiende katika ukurasa wa 3 utapata taarifa hii. KRA sasa yawaendea mawakili, yadai ushuru wa uwekezaji wa mabilioni ya pesa za chama cha LSK. Hata hivyo taarifa kuu pale, mawaziri kichinjioni hawalali na hawakuli pale. Kichinjioni pale.
Let's take a look at the Star this morning. On the Star, maize rice tax waivers cost taxpayer 16 billion shillings. Food prices remain high and government raises charges to get revenue. Could be higher as CS didn't disclose surrender cash as a result of sugar imports. There's an interesting headline that is not in any other daily. The fact that maize, rice and tax waivers on those commodities cost the taxpayer 16 billion shillings, and the CS says it could actually be higher. The other story on the front page of the Star this morning, a picture of a crashed helicopter, 3 injured as exam papers chopper crashes in Wajir. And it's interesting that on the same day, another chopper, this time a KDF chopper, crashed elsewhere as it tried to deliver supplies to victims of flooding. Other highlights on the front page of the Star, we start with the bottom strip. An opinion there by Michelle Waikenda saying Kenya needs an economic recovery plan. On the fuel saga, Raila targets CS as Chirchir and Ndongo as Middle East oil deal gets murkier. And in leadership, NCIC to probe Natembeya over alleged hate speech remarks and ethnic contempt. The only other headline the only other highlight is on the top strip of the Star this morning, matters to do with the weather. Met predicts heavy rains, warns of fake weathermen. It's interesting they're talking of fake weathermen, and we know that debate on whether or not El Nino was coming, and someone stood up on a very big podium to say that it had been reduced.
And then played the...
Yes, and the Met Department says we do not know where that information came from.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't us. So Meteorological Department predicts heavy rains over the next few months and warns of fake weathermen. Yes.
So ask yourself this morning, are you a fake weatherman?
Are you?
Are you?
That's the front page of the Star this morning.
It's interesting because some few weeks ago when that declaration was made by someone there, we were saying, what if it just rains?
Yes.
And it has rained.
And weeks later, actually, I think a week later now, after that particular proclamation, and downplaying that statement, now rain started, cats and dogs, just a week, I think, later. So
I think sometimes it's safer and easier for everyone, including our leaders, just sometimes stay away from some things. You don't need to say everything. And you might just find yourself in an awkward position, having said something that just looks off.
Or just let everyone do their work.
Let everyone do their job, yes.
And do extensive consultative consultations.
Let's have a look at the People Daily this morning and the top headline there, fuel saga. Raila wants CSs to quit. And Azimio leader raises more questions over oil imports, saying Ndung'u Chirchir must go because cost is yet to come down as promised. And yes, that is the story on page 4 of the People Daily this morning. And the top strip of the People Daily, World Bank pledges $12 billion US dollars for Kenya, and the amount equivalent to 1.8 trillion shillings will be disbursed over the 3 years, subject to approval by bank's directors. Yes, on the lower strip of the People Daily, Equity Bank profit hits 36.2 billion shillings in Q3 of this year. And matters climate talks there. President Ruto, when he held talks with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz on the sidelines of the G20 summit with Africa conference in Berlin. Yes, and that is just concerning the president's trip in Germany and France that started Sunday evening and ends, I think, today. I think that's what we have on the on the very top strip of the People Daily. Vet police bosses afresh, says CJ Maraga there. And that is the stories, those are the stories that we have on the top page of the People Daily this morning.
From PD to BD, that is Business Daily, same headline as that on People Daily matters World Bank. And World Bank reveals new 1.8 trillion cash shillings loans for Kenya. So about 684 billion cash shillings to fund public sector projects. And Kenya turns to multilateral banks for budgetary support. And just to give this story context, the World Bank has revealed a new $12 billion, that's about 1.8 trillion cash shillings loan package for Kenya, expected to be disbursed over the next 3 years, beginning July 2024, in what it says will support the journey to become an quote-unquote upper middle income country by 2030. Now, the story also featured on People Daily. Equity Group subsidiaries deliver half of 34.6 billion cash shillings profit as Kenya takes 20% hit. On that sticker there on the right side, KRA lawyers clash over client cash at bank. So the Kenya Revenue Authority has opened a new battlefront with lawyers as it seeks to collect taxes on interest and on billions of cash held in client accounts in a far-reaching move that has sent shockwaves in the legal profession. And finally, win for Safaricom in national roaming fees tussle. So the rates telcos charge rival operators to connect their subscribers in areas where they lack service coverage in Kenya should be negotiated commercially, a study by the communications regulator has said, handing a boost to Safaricom, which has the largest network spread countrywide, and tower operators. That is on page 4, Matters Economy. Quite an interesting story there, and an interesting read. Well, that is the front page of Business Daily.
Okay. Let's now cross the border and see what is headlining in our neighboring countries. I'm looking for do we have the Daily Monitor? Yes, we do. In Uganda today, we take a look at Daily Monitor. The front page of the Daily Monitor, family and state ties at the heart of Katanga's death. This is a big story in Kampala, Uganda today. The demand by relatives of Henry Katanga for an inquest into the death of the businessman after a reported shooting incident on November 2nd has opened a web of a well-knitted family network that weaves through the intricate state power. There's an illustration and the story on pages 2 and 39 of this daily, meaning it is big news in Kampala this morning. The other big headline, Muslims to lose prime assets over 19 billion shilling debt. And when you talk about this 19 billion, that is Ugandan money. Other highlights rather, what you missed at the royal wedding. That's on the left-hand strip of the Daily Monitor. They're still discussing the royal wedding that took place at the weekend. Another highlight, guard kills son of school director. And on the top strip of the Daily Monitor, Canon Banja elected new bishop of Namirembe Diocese. And those are the stories featured on the front page of Daily Monitor in Uganda. Big news in Kampala this morning.
Well, and let's have a look at what is headlining in Tanzania and on the Citizen this morning. The headline there, what growth of banking agent operations means. And yes, agent banking news grew significantly in the past 3 years, with customer deposits and withdrawals both rising sharply. And this is according to a new central bank report. Yes, other stories on the Citizen this morning. Gudoto Lodge rises again as it hosts EAC Summit. And on the top strip of the Citizen, Mwinyi vows action over squabbling lieutenants. Yes, and those are just some of the big stories on the Citizen this morning.
Tukisalia katika nchi hiyo ya Tanzania, gazeti la Mwananchi, taarifa kuu katika nchi hii, tulifukua fedha kutoka ardhini. Hiyo ni kulingana na Inspector Singano. Shahidi inspekta wa polisi asimulia mahakamani alivyokwenda nyumbani kwa kina Musa na baadhi ya washtakiwa kufukua fedha zilizofichwa ardhini. Alieleza baba wa Musa alivyoonyesha mahali zilipokuwa zimefichwa, na fedha hizi ni takriban shilingi milioni 70 fedha za Tanzania zile. Kwingineko pale chini, urais DRC moto fumu shilingi milioni 150 45 wajitosa. 25 samahani. Kwingineko upande wa kulia, Mwinyi aonya vigogo serikalini. Kwingineko ukurasa wa 6 utapata taarifa hii ya kushangaza. Pale Tanzania wanawake wavuta sigara waongezeka. Pale chini swala ya elimu haya, mtaala wa akili bandia rasmi shuleni vyuoni ni dunia mabadiliko makubwa teknolojia. Ni upepo ambao Tanzania haiwezi kuepuka kama kweli inataka kuipiga hatua ya maendeleo. Taarifa pale chini. Mwishowe tuelekee pale juu, kashfa sekta ya afya kuang'oa waganga wakuu. Hivyo ndivyo vidokezo au baadhi ya vidokezo katika gazeti la Mwananchi. And well, because we don't really have
I was trying to get us a cartoon, but technology is failing me. Because the cartoon on the Standard today is very interesting. And it has to do with the... No, I think this is a different paper.
Do you have the People Daily?
I do have the People Daily. Meanwhile, as we try to get others, that is the People Daily on page 10. There's a vehicle that has seen good old days. It's been damaged and no tires on it. And this vehicle has been branded Kenya. On top of it is oil scandal, unrealistic taxes, El Nino, and there's someone driving it, and he's pointing together with another common Mwananchi, and he's saying it's him. There's another gentleman there sitting and saying, you know, just comfortably, he's saying hiya.
It's the hiya for you.
Hiya, you. So basically, if that hire was to be continued, it'd probably, say, hire, you want to blame me for all that you're carrying.
Yeah.
And the vehicle is yours now.
Yes.
Quite
You are on the
ironic.
driver's seat.
Yes.
I'm enjoying my comfortable time elsewhere.
This is such an interesting cartoon.
I think Stano is very accurate to that cartoon. Yes. And that question is always lingering. What else should we blame the last administration for? This is 14, 15 months later. And it's an interesting conversation. I don't know if we have the cartoon on the standard. We do have it among those that we had shared earlier. But yes, the cartoon on the standard has much to do with the matters El Nino. And we have someone standing on his seat inside his office with a very big desk. But the office is flooded. So that's why he's standing on the seat. And then someone is telling him, Your Excellency, it's about time you take another trip abroad. because your office is already flooded. That is Gado. So yes, at least we have Gado and Stano today.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Interesting.
Well, that definitely wraps up the whole newspaper review. I'm pretty sure you'll continue more and take a look at the whole politics of fuel and all that with the panel this morning.
After the break, we have a huge panel. Freddy Kokango, Azimio spokesperson, will be in studio alongside Anne Wamuratha, woman representative Kiambu County, Dr. Martin Olo, lawyer and political analyst, and John Kiari, KJ, MP Dagoretti South. Do stand by for that conversation on State of the Nation. And meanwhile, you can keep interacting with us on social media, on X at TV47 News, and on Facebook, TV47 Kenya. You're watching Morning Cafe. Morning Cafe on TV47 with me, Fred Indemuli. As promised, we have in studio John Kiarie, MP Dagoretti South, Frederick Okango, Azimio spokesperson, and we expect two other people to be joining this panel as we continue. Gentlemen, good morning, karibu sana. KJ, it is your very first time to TV47. Karibu TV47. It's good to have you in studio.
Thank you very much, Fred, and it's a great honor to be here this morning speaking to Kenyans who got up very early.
Oh yes, on this rainy Tuesday.
On this very rainy, grey and cold Tuesday morning. Yes. But you've got to salute the resilience and the enterprise of Kenyans, including yourself, Fred. Mm-hmm. You're always here very early in the morning, making sure that Kenya is informed. Oh, yes. It's a great honor to be here.
The only way we do it. Asante sana. Fred Okango, a familiar face in this panel. Karibu sana, Fred.
Thank you so much.
And a lot of things have been happening this week. Some of them captured on the daily, some of them not. But at least we can see some of the cartoons I've captured, because on Sunday, one of the biggest talking points on Monday was the reappearance of the former president at that event in Mwingi alongside the Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka. It is no longer on the front pages. Yesterday it was on all the front pages of the dailies. But at least I've seen two cartoons have made mention of this. The caricature on page 19 of the Daily Nation, where a yellow car full of people has just driven off a cliff, and someone who's still standing with a microphone speaking is being told to shh by those people in that car. That's the cartoon on the Daily Nation. Victor Ndula is a cartoonist there. On the People Daily, and this we had talked about earlier, Stano also made reference to this. A vehicle as well, with so many things on it, and the blame going to one person. These caricatures talk about the blame game that continues, the fact that more than 1 year later, the new administration is still... yes, that's a cartoon on the People Daily by Stano. And you see that ramshackle, it's not even a car. This badly bitten off vehicle with so much luggage, and that it has a flag of Kenya, and the driver and even that person standing next to it are pointing to the gentleman seated on a very comfortable chair and saying, it's him. And in response, he just says, hiya. A lot has been said about the continued blame game. Let's start with you, John Kiarie, about the continued blame game, or the blame attributed to the previous administration in as far as the current situation that we face as a country. Many people would say, and this is a conversation that is very much alive on social media, that we gave you a job. We know the problem. We know the extent of the problem. Your job is to fix it, not to blame everyone else. Let's start from there.
Thank you very much, Fred, and it's good that you bring it up. Only that we are all looking at it on face value, at the value of the headline, because the issues that Kenya is undergoing right now go beyond the headlines. We're at a point where we are wading in an unprecedented space. Never in the history of this country have we ever been where we are. And never in the history of the world has the globe been where we are. Now, you see even the analysts. We have Stano from the People Daily with the cartoon that is on the screen right now. He's saying the exact opposite of what Vic Ndula has drawn, meaning that the jury is still out there on this discussion, in the sense that we are still dealing at face value. We've got to actually look at the right issues, and the issues are beyond what we are seeing on the surface in the headlines. The issues are, you say that we know what the problem is. Clearly, we still don't know the extent of the mess that we are in. When we come to the conversation that is very rife today about fuel, for example, which is making headlines today, every waking day, there is new information as to how deep we had sunk, up to and including two very critical issues that have a direct effect on our economy. Issue number one, how we dealt with the issue of fuel subsidies and who they were benefiting, because they were not benefiting the Kenyan. Who is it that was pocketing the billions and billions of shillings that were being set aside every month, ostensibly to deal with propping up the fuel? But the second one, which is even more critical, is the raiding of our reserves, foreign exchange reserves, to prop up the Kenya shilling. So much so that there was a time that the government of Kenya was being extremely dishonest about the true value of the Kenya shilling. Mm-hmm. That we were raiding our foreign exchange reserves to prop up the shilling so that politically the shilling looks strong.
Okay.
When the props were removed, we can see where the shilling is. And you remember, that was at a time when we had people in office who never wanted to be told or never wanted to hear of a critique. But at that point, an alarm bell was sounded by even our lenders from the Bretton Woods institutions, who said that this artificial propping of the shilling will greatly cost Kenya in the near future.
Very well
now we've
said.
seen it.
Very well said, but the issue is, what value is there to be gained, apart from political, of continuously blaming the previous administration? I mean, this administration has had enough time, has had an opportunity to even craft its own budget. It is at least 14 months since President William Ruto took over the reins of power. What value is there to be gained, apart from political?
Ndimole, there's no value to gain. You know, they say a transformative nation focuses on the future. A non-transformative nation focuses in the past. What our friends from Kenya Kwanza regime are focusing on the past. The people of Kenya today do not care who was the president 1 year ago. They care who is in the driving seat now. What is he doing to transform the lives of the people? If you look at that cartoon by Stano, look at all manner of things that vehicle is carrying. And those things are some of the issues that are of concern to the people. Let me take you back to Mombasa, what is currently happening. The floods are marooning homes. Bamburi, wherever, people are dying. People are being evacuated. You have seen the other day, unfortunately, there were 2 helicopters that crashed in the same county. It's very unfortunate that so many things are happening. You have seen the oil scandal that now has been on the newspapers every day. And there is a gentleman seated. They are wondering, Kenyans are missing him now, because there are certain things he predicted before he left office, and he told Kenyans, if you want to go the right way, go this route. But if you want to go the wrong way, you can choose to go the other route. Kenyans today are asking themselves, why would it be so important for the Kenya Kwanza regime to keep referring to the previous regime while they have got an opportunity and the instruments of power to serve and deliver the people of Kenya? Why is it important to them to always give us blame games? But when God gives you an opportunity to serve the people, you use it to the best of your knowledge, and you ask God to help you. But these people, they have been telling us that everything that is a mess in this country, including their own mess, is as a result of the failure of the previous regime. Never mind, Fred, that in that previous regime, who was the principal assistant to the president then? It was William Ruto.
Okay. If you look at the kind of baggage on top of this car, these are problems that have occurred this year. The El Nino. There's nothing to be blamed on the previous administration, especially. The oil scandal, or the saga surrounding importation of oil that is now in dispute, whose ownership is in dispute. The taxes, probably that could be related to the kind of financial mess that we could be in. But some of these problems you cannot really blame the previous administration in handling. An issue, for example, like the weather phenomenon we're now experiencing, the handling of the response and the back and forth in as far as communicating whether or not the El Nino will be there. That is something that happened over the last 1 month. If at all there's any lack of proper response to what is happening, that cannot be attributed to any other administration, don't you think?
I want to agree with Fred on one issue, that Kenyans might not care about who was the president a year and some months ago. But Kenyans do care what that administration or where that administration got the republic. When you look at the vehicle that Stano has drawn, you've got to check who the driver is. The driver who has just gained a new epiphany and just realized how untidy the handshake regime was. Being a principle of the handshake regime, you see, that is not Kenya Kwanza finger pointing. That is actually a principle of the handshake regime.
Oh, I don't know, I'm seeing different, that the driver is, the person on the driver's seat is someone else. Okay, it is a cartoon, so everyone's interpretation is different.
I would imagine Stano is attributing the recent utterances by the former leader of opposition. But the point I want to make...
It cannot be that it's him on the driver's seat.
Well...
currently, if that vehicle is Kenya, then the person on the driver's seat is definitely someone different.
The point I want to make, Fred, is that yes, Kenyans might not be caring about who was president then, but Kenyans do care about where that administration got us. You spoke very well about how long the Kenya Kwanza government has been in place. And any government is able to implement its policies out of the resources they are able to collect and the resources they are able to appropriate and expend. The budget, the Kenya Kwanza budget was read in July. And that is when you can say real work began. Before that, what were we dealing with? Of course, when you talk about the El Nino phenomenon, it's a natural phenomenon. But did we ever apply the Joseph principle in the previous administration in preparation for what might occur?
Okay.
If we were depleting our resources then, how do we expect to have anything to expend to such emergencies today? But more importantly, while it might look political for the finger pointing that we are seeing in that cartoon, Fred, there is something to be said even about the trillions and trillions of Kenya shillings that were expedited out of this country and repatriated to foreign accounts. The whole conversation around state capture is a conversation that we cannot run away from. And
it's good that you've mentioned that state capture, because I want to welcome all the panelists, because now I have a full panel. And Ann Muratha, Woman Representative, Kiambu County, karibu sana to TV47. It's good to have you in studio this morning. Also joining the panel, Dr. Martin Olo, lawyer and political analyst. And you've just found us looking at that cartoon by the People Daily. The cartoonist, in his caricature this morning, is talking about the constant finger pointing, or rather unending finger pointing and blame game in the administration of this country. The argument is Kenyans already know the extent of the problem. Kenyans probably understand, because we're living in the information age, how this problem came to be. We do understand probably even to a great extent who is to blame. But we do have an administration in place. We have a president. Isn't it consequential? And now that the Honorable John Kerry has mentioned about state capture, aren't there better ways of handling this issue than persistent blame game? Let's start with you, Dr.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Fred. And KJ is a good friend of mine. And I always think that we need to go forwards. You don't drive forwards by looking backwards. Kenya is a going concern. It's a country, it's a state, it's a nation. It matters not who was the president at what point, but it matters the state in which Kenya is as we progress. So I hear what he's saying, state capture. Trillions of monies were, expatriated. That's fine. What action are you taking? If people stole, if Uhuru Kenyatta stole, put him in the dock. Tell us who stole. Yes, there could have been corruption, yes. Give us the evidence. Sue. You have the apparatus of the status, EACC, everybody's there. Let us get heads rolling. No problem. If there's corruption, let us deal with it. But we can't talk about it and do nothing about it. So unless you want us to just think we want to be in a musical chair. So when I say Kenya is a going concern, I say this. We have been here before, and sometimes I think I've been around a bit long enough, or too long. We saw Moi. Moi was here for 24 years. We saw what happened to this economy. But we also saw Kibaki. And Kibaki came and just did what he needed to do. He didn't tell us, oh, Moi this, oh, Moi that. No. He just fixed the economy. He said the economy was bad, he fixed it.
Yes.
Then he went. Then in came Ruto. Now, I have no idea when Ruto became a part, or when Ruto stopped being the deputy president. I don't know. But for all I know is that for 10 years of Jubilee government, Ruto was the deputy president.
Okay.
Now, if you tell me that other regime was bad and only Uhuru was bad, then we have a problem with what governance is about.
Okay. And Dr. Olo raises an interesting point, because one of the promises that President William Ruto and his deputy Rigathi Gachagua gave, and they even gave a timeline, that once they take the reins of power, within 30 days, a commission to probe alleged or allegations of state capture would be in place. That was a better or a more solid response to the allegations being raised now. But you're seeing that a year later, more than a year later, that commission is not in place. Yet the blame games continue. Of what value are the persistent blame games, if at all you're not going to have a solution to this problem, like suggested by Dr. Olo? If at all there was state capture, probe it, take the people to court, hold them to account.
Fred, there is one thing I want to speak to this nation, and especially to our leaders and people who are in positions that they're able to speak just like we are here. That we need to be an honest nation. If we really love our country, we need to be honest with ourselves. When we in the Kenya Kwanza came to power, it is true that was all what was promised. But again, the other thing I want us to reason is that we wouldn't be so foolish to a point that we would wish to miss another term. We would want to really fix this country because this is what we promised the people of Kenya. But again, even as we continue to speak, the people who study the like of the lawyers, the politicians, the other leaders in this country know where this country is and where the country was taken by the Handshake Brothers. They know what they did. Everyone knows. But we are trying to live in denial. And Fred, I'm looking to a time where we as Kenyans will own our country and accept that we are in a deep hole, that we cannot even go any further. We only have to find our way up as a country when we own up our own problems. You see now what has been happening in this country is that the country was taking the wrong direction. We're going to an anti-clockwise direction. And when the Kenya Kwanza came into power, it was either maintain the lie or take the other direction. People had for some time, but then we start ticking. When they talk of, when I hear my brother here talk of how President Kibaki came into power after Moi left, and how President Kibaki fixed this economy. We were still in this country, and we knew the kind of noise President Kibaki was going through from the same people who are making noise now, were the same people. In fact, he only was that kind of a person who never responded to them. He concentrated and did what he was to do. Unfortunately now, the times now are different. There were no things like social media then. Today, there are so many lies that are being sold by these people for people not to understand the things they used to do. For example, if we could look at the case of the dollar, even in last year, all the leaders and everybody who is interested to know, including you, know that the books in this country were being cooked. It is the public domain to lie to people that the dollar was doing well. But now what we are here is, I look at President William and I think the decision we had to make was this. We either continue lying the people and put the country into the drain, or take the country to the right direction. And by 27, we will be able to show the people where we started fixing the country.
The question is on the blame game, because if at all there are claims that there was a lot of wrongdoing that borders on criminal or crimes committed by the last administration, there have been allegations that trillions of currency, Kenyan currency or even US dollars from our reserves were expatriated. They said that they were being carried in boxes. That is criminal. If this administration does not hold those people who committed these crimes to account, who are still Kenyans, according to the allegations, wouldn't this administration therefore be complacent in those crimes?
Fred, one thing that you need to understand is today, if I go to court and I say you have stolen from me, by the time you have to be proven guilty in a court of law. There is a law. There is the law in this country. You have to be proven. In as much as I want to prove that you have stolen to me, there is the law that has to be followed for you to be jailed or for any action to be taken. But at the same time, in as much as we are looking at all these things that happened, we have a country to fix. There is something that needs to be done, in as much as we still want to look. And you see these things are going to go into history. They're going to be seen. They're going to be read. They were done by our own people. They're going to be here forever. And books will be written and stories will be told. And chapters will be there about these people. But now you need to understand that even as we continue investigating on all these and how they happened, the country has to be moving.
True.
And as long as the country
Fred, it would be, and I want to totally take the trajectory that the Honorable County MP for Kiambu has taken. And she took it off from where Daktari had set it. You want to paint a picture, just as the narrative has been pushed, that the only thing happening is blame game. Nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, there is so much that is getting done today that it is the rattling the people who occasioned this mesh. You can see they have been smoked out from the holes they have been. Some of them, we were told, had disappeared to Dubai. What is that is being done that is smoking these people out of the holes they had gone into, right? That now they want to come into the public domain and defend themselves. Now, when the government of William Ruto came to office, it was a place where decisions had to be made. And it was a decision to decide, do we continue perpetuating the lie, or do we make tough decisions that are extremely unpopular but have effect in the long run? What decisions are being made? For starters, a country can only invest monies either from borrowed loans, the taxes they raise, or from grants. Those are the three options Kenya had. Did we have to continue with the borrowing in the style and manner of the previous government? A very tough decision was made. Let us stop borrowing expensively. Two, what do we do about raising the taxes?
Let us stop borrowing expensively, or let's continue borrowing? So that we know.
Let us stop borrowing expensively.
Oh, but we're still borrowing.
The borrowing has to happen.
Okay.
Martin, it would be a lie.
That's what I'm saying.
And we'll come to that discussion because there's a headline about the continuous borrowing.
But see this.
The discussion right now is about the blame game.
The borrowing,
interventions by the
borrowing, and there is nothing wrong with borrowing. But what kind of borrowing was happening? Remember, in the last parliament, there was a very big hue and cry, an uproar, on the form of loans that we were getting. Loans that were so expensive for this country and was so short-sighted that today the Eurobond is due. We know that there are countries in Africa, not too far away from us, who are actually even at the brink of default.
Okay.
In his State of the Nation address, the president told us that be sure that the first batch of prepayment for Eurobond will happen, meaning that we have an economy that is actually active, that is growing, and we are able to even honor some of the pledges that this country ought to honor. But the point I was making is this. Let us move the conversation. And I liked what that we are better off driving, looking forward. Let us drive the conversation from this issue that all that is happening in blame game.
Okay.
Very
Hold that
tough
thought there.
decisions are being made in
Hold
this
that
government
thought there.
that have a good impact.
And I
on
can
our
see
economy.
even when Okango is
And
to respond, but it's time for a break. We'll come back and we'll continue this conversation about whether or not there's any value to be gained by the continuous blame game between government, this particular administration, and the last one. You're watching Morning Cafe. Continue interacting with us on social media. We'll be back after this break. That's a cartoon this morning on The People Daily, a caricature by Stano. And it's the discussion we're having here, the persistent blame game of who's to blame for the situation we now find ourselves in. We're still in studio with the Ann Wamorada, woman representative Kiambu County, Frederick Okango, Azimio spokesperson, John Kiari, MP Dagoretti South, and Dr. Martin Olo, lawyer and political analyst. But Okango, I know you wanted to react to that, but I want to pose it to you that if at all, because governments do change, and in the next 5 or 10 years, we'll have a new administration. If at all there are serious transgressions by any administration, there should be a way or some sort of recourse for the country beyond blame game. If at all this administration is not going to take action against perpetrators of serious crimes against the country, as they claim, then probably they're expecting that when it is time for a new administration, the same courtesy will be accorded to them, that even some of the transgressions that will be attributed to them will go unpunished, don't you think?
Well, before I answer that, every time a new president is elected, he or she takes oath of office. When you read that oath of office or solemn affirmation to the execution of that duty, it starts with the word I, not we, not anything else, I. It means you take responsibility and you affirm to truly execute those functions of that office as yourself, together with the instruments that are given in accordance with the Constitution. That is what is expected of William Ruto. 2, they have talked of borrowing, and KJ, my friend here, agrees that when they were campaigning, they did tell Kenyans that they will not borrow. In fact, those clips are there. But today, he's agreeing that they have continued to borrow, whether locally, or whether domestically or internationally, they're borrowing. Number 3, you were talking about the blame game. If you saw that cartoon, the burden that they are carrying today, their current burdens, the burden of unrealistic taxation, the burden of lies of El Nino, the burden of lies of unemployment, the burden of so many things. Murada here is talking about the other political formation lying about them. But they're forgetting that themselves they are living a lie. When they promised the Mamamboga that when you bring us into office, you will transform your life because of 1, 2, 3. They told the boda that when you bring us to office, we shall transform your life. In fact, they even said we are going to give you electric motorbike. Yesterday you saw the bodas are returning the electric motorbikes in Mombasa. They're returning them. They're not working. Now, what I'm saying is all these things they are trying to tell us that are as a result of the mess that was occasioned by the previous regime. But Freddie Ndimuli, I want to ask you, during that time, who was the chair of the all-powerful Budget and Appropriation Committee? Kimani Ichung'wah, who is now the majority leader. At that time, who was the majority leader for some time before the other guy came in? Eden Duale. Who was the principal assistant to the president at that time? William Ruto. What we are saying, the government does not stop. It's a cog that continues. Whether it is having friction or not, it continues. So at that time, they were continuing the execution of those functions in those offices using whatever they had, and they're the same people.
Okay.
The people that they're saying are criticism today were not there. Raila Odinga was not there. But you have asked a very important question. When we are in such a situation, what do? For us in Azimio, we have told them and we have called them out on their own lies. We have told them, you did tell Kenyans that you will do 1, 2, 3. I want you to check what is called promise tracker. When you look at that promise tracker, what they call the plan has been loaded there. None of those plans has been, from where we are now, they have not executed even half of what they said. They are below par at 30%. And even the 30%, 8% has failed. So what we are saying is we have a problem.
Okay.
But when you have a problem, you listen to the people. You cannot be, they know it all.
Okay.
They come out as they know it all. They cannot be told. And when we cite issues, they say we are lying.
Okay, Dr. Olo, in the spirit of going forward, because I see the issue of state capture, now that discussion being revived, and I'm quoting here the leader of majority, Kimani Ichung'wah, on his Twitter page, X, he says a state capture commission, he talks about a state capture commission that does not exist yet, will guide the country not to ever repeat past economic mistakes and private business-inspired policies as we forge ahead. It will as well end the culture of impunity as public officers use their offices to loot the country. It will help us repatriate all the loot stashed in safe havens. These are serious allegations. And he offers a solution in the same statement. This is what they should have done.
And I'm looking forward to that. The only thing is that we live in Kenya and we know where we've come from. We had a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, TJRC. We know it produced a report. And we also know that it was just a report up to today. We know what the commissions of inquiry do in this country. And I can tell you, if such a commission will be there, I can tell you what the result will be. So it will only be a way of assuaging and trying to buy time, as we know. There's something Fred is saying which is very important. After 2010, and the Uhuru government came on the 2010 constitution, the power of budget making transferred from the executive to the National Assembly, to the legislature. And throughout the Uhuru's time, the people who were in power, the people who managed the budget and the parliamentary business were and are right now in Kenya Kwanza government.
Right.
Kimani Ichung'wah, Aden Duale, all those people. In fact, you can say that the people who sabotaged Uhuru Kenyatta, if they are such people, they are right now sitting in Kenya Kwanza. Because they were there working for Uhuru, but busy sleeping in Ruto's camp. Now they are with him. Now, if you say that the budget books were cooked, who do you look straight in the face? Who was the chairman of the budget? Kimani Ichung'wah. If you say that the parliament or that this country borrowed without any breaks, who do you look in the eye? The National Assembly. If you say, and this is where now KJ comes in, we just had a budget the other day, in June. In November, October, we've had supplementary budget. There is a difference between the budget we approved, or that the parliament approved, and now the one the supplementary budget is coming, to the extent that money is being moved from infrastructure, from economic activities, to social and recurrent expenditure. So you see the budget of the Office of the President ballooning, you see the budget of the Deputy President ballooning, but you see money reduced from roads and other sectors. So if we are looking at what is going to happen, and we will not need a long time, that this government, despite the fact that it promised bottom-up, and what bottom-up is a transformative way of budgeting, it has since abandoned that and gone to what in budget and policy making you are calling disjointed incrementalism. Now, what is disjointed incrementalism? Mm-hmm. Is that you just pick what was there, increase something, and then go on. What they should have done, which we were looking forward to, is they should have transformed the entire budget making process, and bottom up would have meant start from ground zero. They haven't gone there.
Okay. And we have members of the National Assembly here.
They haven't gone there.
Fred, this is interesting. Fred did speak about a promise checker. And I think on this panel we need a fact checker, because it is him who submits that a president takes an oath on his own, and he submits that the Honorable William Ruto should actually be solely responsible as president, and then goes further to say that in his term and tenure, Uhuru was not responsible. It was the people he was working with. And then Daktari takes it and runs with it as if it is a statement of fact. The true situation is the fact that, yes, this economy was run down, and run down to a place where Kenya has never been. What is happening today? Today we have a government in place that did not manufacture a manifesto in an air-conditioned, carpeted room. A manifesto that was collaboratively built by Kenyans in every sector, from all walks of life. Each and every single county had a session where they sat down and set out what their aspirations are. Those became the manifesto, transformed into what we call the Kenya Kwanza Plan. The Kenya Kwanza Plan that is being executed, and heavily so, especially with the budget that was put in place by the Kenya Kwanza government. Now, what is happening, and I thought that's where you were taking us, Fred, is the fact that in the implementation of the Kenya Kwanza government, it becomes extremely uncomfortable to those people who are used to status quo. All the noise you hear is in an effort to distract the implementation of the plan. Because when someone sees that in the first year of the Kenya Kwanza government, 56,000 teachers have been employed, historic, never happened in 60 years of this country's history, that today there is a massive macroeconomic plan that is being rolled out that will have a drastic change on how Kenya operates. That if the housing plan takes off, you can imagine it does not only speak to housing Kenyans, it speaks to offering employment across the economic sector, from the manufacturer all the way to the manual laborer. That if Kenya Kwanza rolls out its digital literacy plan, where we have 1,450 digital innovation hubs secured in each and every ward, they have seen what is happening in the few hubs that have already come up, where young people are going in as learners and in 3 weeks become earners and earning in dollars, impressive figures. And this is stuff that is in the public domain, but it will never make it to the TV because we want to have a conversation on whether there is a blame game going on and not. It's playing to the people who are distracting the implementation of the plan, claiming that the plan is not being rolled out. But they know that if it is implemented, and for example, and this came out of and I don't hold brief for the majority leader, but remember, the commission is not an utterance. It is a pledge that that this government will institute a state capture commission.
Bring it on.
What would happen if a state capture commission was instituted? Do you see where the noise is coming from? What is this that is rattling them so much that they have to come out in arms? Remember, there have been attempts to disrupt the economy of this country. When Kenya Kwanza came into office, they predicted that we will not go as far as April of 2023. In fact, they had said in a few months, the economy is going to collapse. Knowing what mess they had left, the economy did not collapse. They had predicted that by December 2023, Kenya will be a banana state. It is not. The economy is working, and more so, it's on a recovery. And Fred, the conversation keeps shifting, and I want to finish.
And I
also
want to shift that.
Yes, just hold on. Let me say, their target keeps moving. It's a moving target. Initially, they said they want to go to the streets because of election injustice. They realized it's not popular. They changed it to the cost of living. And the icon,
that's not
and
true.
the icon, the mascot of the Maandamano was actually the price of unga. Let me prosecute.
No, let's not digress.
The point is this, that theirs is always a moving target. When the price of unga moves from 243 Kenya shillings to 143, the conversation now shifts to another thing that they can blame.
So anyway, members of the National Assembly, and when we talk about the blame game, there's also some blame that can be directed their way. They also took oath of office to perform certain roles. Absolutely. And when you talk about the performance of government and oversight role that the National Assembly plays, a lot can be said and a lot of questions have been posed on the conduct, as to the conduct of this 13th Parliament. When we say in relation to the previous administration, that the majority leader, the chair of the budgetary committee were responsible to some extent, the same can be said to this, unless members of the National Assembly are saying that their role does not count in as far as budget making is concerned. Because we're looking at these headlines. World Bank to give Kenya over 1.8 trillion shilling loans and investments. That is on page 24 of the Standard today. And I go back to the leader of majority, Kimani Ichung'wah's Twitter page, and he's talking about another $930 million IMF facility, and is praising this as being a direct result of a prosperous government. This is borrowing.
Yeah.
Which we've talked about borrowing and the debt crisis that the nation has been in. When it comes to borrowing, all the approvals go through the National Assembly. This debate and the discussion around borrowing is getting muddied, and Kenyans do not understand. On one side, we are in a debt crisis. On the other side, we are still borrowing and praising the new borrowing.
Is it, Fred, on this as they respond, the way we need to agree is this. borrowing is something that governments do all over the world, including the US.
Correct.
So when you come and tell us you will not borrow, or you not borrow expensively, can you break that down for us?
Exactly.
Because Bretton Woods institutions are known all over the world. I need to see one country that depended on IMF and World Bank that prospered.
And the question was because
the big question here, and I thought, Martin is brilliant. He only goes short of telling the truth where he knows it might end up benefiting him.
Okay.
Let me tell you
briefly, so that you can
the issue you bring on borrowing, as Martin is saying, governments do live off borrowing. The question is, what quality of monies is being borrowed? Are they concessional loans? Are they loans that are extremely expensive? Are they string attached loans? The headline that you read should not be seen only as an issue of borrowing. It should be seen as a confidence to the economy. What had happened? Remember when Kenya Kwanza was coming to office, Kenya's borrowing limit had come to zero. That Kenya was at a stage where you could not approach any credible lender to acquire any facility. It means then that there must be some policies that have been put in place that have given lender confidence, because the moment the lender realizes that you have no ability to pay, no lender will give you. So when you see such a headline, and why the Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah is talking about it, is because it is an indicator of decisions, very tough decisions, that are being made to the credit of this nation.
People of Kiambu have been told that this government will not borrow. That we borrowed too much, we borrowed too expensively, we're in a debt crisis. Actually, that's the only reason why the cost of living is so high. That's why they're feeling their pockets are being raided. Now the government is borrowing, and they're praising the same. And do you think there's a lot of confusion that this administration is creating? And this conversation definitely is being had at the level of the National Assembly, because you have to approve all these things.
Fred, maybe what I would say is what I said from the beginning. And I said, let's learn to be honest people, because we all live in this country. I would first give an example before I answer your question. I'm in the Education Committee in Parliament. And every time I go and sit in the Education Committee, and I come home in the evening and watch news, the story that was in the meeting and the story on the news are completely different stories. Because there's a way, I don't know, this country, there's some funny people that are playing games to try to run the country down. And what I would want to say is this, and now on what you are asking me, the country...
Can I clarify, is it an indictment of the media that we...
I think if we concentrate on those things, then we will not get anywhere, because there's something that is happening. Because what we are concentrating on is what is our agenda. And I have told you I am in Education Committee, which has the biggest budget now in this year. But look at it now. I'm telling you, when I get home in the evening and I watch TV and what we were discussing in the meeting and what is on the national TVs is completely different. Let's not go that direction, because that's not what we are discussing today. What I'm saying is, when we are discussing about these loans, right now, the noise that is all over this country is about what? Is about the cost of living, the loans and everything. And because these people, these Azimio people, they know very well where they left the country. So every time now we are approaching to the payment of the Eurobond. A Eurobond that has never been accounted for. So what do we do as Azimio? We wake up and make noise and try to talk all eyes about this government, so that before we talk of where did they take this Eurobond, can they be able to account for? And now they are saying Kimani Ichung'wah and I don't know who were in that government, and they are still now in this other regime. We were still in this country, and we know what happened. The President William Ruto was the deputy to Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta in the papers. But was he really the deputy president then? We realized in his second term, his official deputy was his handshake brother. And the many things that they did together is known to them and known to their people. But what I'm telling you, Fred, is this. If we keep concentrating on all those things now, because eventually these things, even if they are not finished now, we will get them. And as my brother over there said, This country has had so many beautiful commissions, so many beautiful policies. The unfortunate thing about this country is that these things are never implemented. Over the years, we are a country that has never implemented all the beautiful things that have been done, the beautiful work that has been done by different commissions. And now we are saying it is the high time that we live true to ourselves and start asking ourselves, for how long are we going to be putting beautiful work done by our learned people? Beautiful commissions did beautiful things. They have never been implemented. None is ever implemented in this country. So we are saying now it is a time, and times have changed now. You cannot continue telling people story. And fortunately, it is our time now to start now implementing what our people has always desired to be happening in this country.
I'll take you back to some tweets attributed to the now president. He was deputy president. This is December 21st, 2016, on this issue of borrowing. And he says the IMF indicates Kenya is among the best growing countries in the region, citing a low debt level and qualifying for credit. World Bank, IMF agree with borrowing for infrastructure. It is the only way economy will grow. Kenya can borrow up to 74% of GDP. The present value of Kenya's public debt, this is now, the tweet I've just read was earlier in 2015. He was deputy president. And in 2014, the present value of Kenya's debt, public debt to GDP ratio is about 45%, which is below the sustainable threshold established by the IMF.
Brilliant.
This
During the Jubilee time.
About his position as deputy president.
Yes.
So he talked about these debt issues.
Beautiful,
And
before the handshake brothers.
The same kind of sentiment we're getting from the majority leader now, that Kenya now is in a better position to borrow. We were in a better position to borrow back then. That is where Kenyans get lost.
No, he supported it. He was for Eurobond. He defended the budget. So there's nothing we are being told.
As I said, first of all, there was never anything like Azimio government. So that's a lie. Yeah? What we had was Jubilee, whose deputy party leader was William Ruto, and the deputy president, who was principal single president, was William Ruto. Okay, that is there. Number two, what you see, you know, Kenyans are very keen. They know what William Ruto said when he was a member of parliament, when he was a minister, when he was a deputy president, when now he is president. They know. And they will always go back and bring those archives and put them there. Unfortunately, politics is a game. And when you play a game, play by the rules. Because the rules also demand that when situations change, tell the people that it is now changed and this is what I thought would work, it is now not working. But don't continue with the lie while Kenyans know the truth about your position on certain issues. Number two, let me take you back a bit on the issue of members of parliament. We have two of them here. You know, the members of parliament, their role is to address issues of concern. They deliberate and address those issues of concern to the people. And if you go into what is happening today of the cost of living, the budget, the taxes, these gentlemen and ladies, they determine revenue. They also allocate. But of concern is that President Uhuru Kenyatta mismanaged the country while they were in that as an arm of government doing what they were supposed to do for those who were in that parliament then. They had an opportunity also to go further and look at their role in terms of, you know, reviewing the conduct of the office of the president. They never did that. If Uhuru was that bad and was mismanaging the country, their members who were in the leadership also would have even impeached Uhuru. Why didn't they do that? Why did they wait till Uhuru exits and then they're now saying the problem we are undergoing is as a result of mismanagement of Uhuru Kenyatta? That's a line number two. A line number three that we're being told today is that the situation is bad worldwide. There's war in Israel and Palestine, Hamas and Israel. There was Ukraine and Russia that we were told at the steps of Karen. We were told Uhuru was blaming the cost of living then, or the cost of fuel then, to the war in Ukraine and Russia. He said it. Few years later, a year later, he used the same and said, no, the reason why this is happening is because of the war in Ukraine and Russia. Then now we're being told of Israel and Palestine. What I'm saying is, when you don't play by the rules, then you are likely to be exposed. And they say, you can not manage a country by propaganda, because if you do so, the microeconomics and the exchange rate will expose you. This regime has been exposed badly because they thought at that time they would use every means possible to criticize Uhuru and desperate regime. Today they're on the hot seat. What Azimio is telling them, you are eating your own lies. You told Kenyans 1, 2, 3. You have failed to deliver on those. What are you doing about them? That is what we are asking.
I'll allow you to respond, then I go to hold up. Yes.
Oh man, Fred, I've always thought that one day a treatise will be written on how a party like KANU became obsolete after being one of the biggest institutions, political institutions in this country. And Fred is helping me understand. Because you asked a very objective question. And Fred can spend the entire morning discussing personalities, away from the issues. Your question was very specific to the statements made by the then Deputy President in 2016. And you read it verbatim as he said it. And I see nothing inconsistent with what he said then and what Kimani Ichung'wah is saying. And remember, you have to contextualize it. This is 2016. Remember, the first term of Jubilee government was extremely productive, and visibly so. It is that time that we talk about the development that was rolled out, that was in continuation and perpetuation of the Mwai Kibaki Agenda 2030, if you remember. In the second term, a new agenda was introduced, which was supposed to be a Marshall Plan, and it was called Agenda 4. I can tell you no Kenyan even remembers what the 4 agendas on that Agenda 4 was happening. At the point Agenda 4 was happening, William Ruto was substantially an outsider in that government. And in fact, he was such an outsider that he had to try and cling on against a force that was so hell-bent on making sure that he does not exercise his responsibilities as deputy president, to the point that it culminated in what you saw. Fred talks about parliament. If you remember, the 12th parliament was actually, by the mid of that term, was split into 2. Pro-BBI and against BBI. Some of us had the spine to stand up and say that this is not the time to roll out a monster in the name of BBI. The parliamentarians have individual responsibility, as you said, and they can be checked by their track record. The names that you're mentioning here, you're mentioning the Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah. Kimani Ichung'wah was fumigated out of the budget committee because of speaking truth to power. When he was able to face his president and tell him, there are things I will not do as budget chair in parliament. He has been consistent in his utterances, in his actions. But what we need to ask ourselves, Fred, and it's where I started out, we've got to get away from the personalities and deal with the Kenyan concern. Ask ourselves, if it is true that Kenya Kwanza said it wouldn't borrow, because there is no point that Kenya Kwanza said it wouldn't borrow. Kenya Kwanza said that there is no place for expensive borrowing in Kenya. What is expensive borrowing? Is when you forego an affordable facility so that you can go get a facility expensively that will personally benefit you and benefit your enterprise and benefit your family. That is what state capture is. We've got to ask ourselves, when we look at the development that was undertaken in the first term of Jubilee, compare it to what happened in the second term. Because the only project that was undertaken in the second term of Jubilee was BBI, which was a complete failure. And I would want so what you read is not inconsistent with what the president.
And I will read something else that you can all respond to, because you all agree that at least the dispute on whether or not William Ruto was in charge was probably in the second term of the Jubilee administration. The tweets he made in 2016. I've just gone to treasury.go.ke and looked at the issuance of the Kenya Eurobonds. Issuance dates, maturity dates, coupon and amount. The biggest Eurobond issue was in 2014.
That's not the contest, Fred.
2000.
The contest
was
is
the
the one.
president
It is
then?
It is the one whose maturity is in 2024. The next one is in 2027, 2028. They were borrowed much later. But the one that it matures in 2024 was taken in 2014.
But don't confuse your listener.
So that KJ does not dominate
Don't confuse the listener, Fred, because the issue the Honorable Amoratha raised was not as to whether the Eurobond was borrowed. It was to how it was applied.
Okay.
And the question was
even that you can't defend, because when the issue of how it was applied came up, William Ruto is on record to have defended the government of
Absolutely.
He did. It's on record, so we don't need to lie. I want to help my friends in Kenya Kwanza. Governments world over operate on the basis of confidence. If you are in government, we Kenyans and everybody else needs to be given positive messaging, and we need to be confident. If it is you who's telling us that we are in the bottom, we are in a bad place, the economy is bad, you are not encouraging foreign domestic investors, you are not encouraging me as a Kenyan to do much more. If you are telling me it's bad and you want my taxes, you're not encouraging me to give you taxes. So please begin to give us some positive vibes from where you sit. 2, it is not true for us to be sitting here and to tell ourselves that all is well and that all we need to do is blame Uhuru, blame Raila, and things will be okay. No. There are things we need to fix. It's not true to say that the only project that Uhuru did in the second term was BBI. It's not true. Just take the expressway, take a number of PPPs, and so on. But it's also true that we haven't seen any major project commence by
in 3 months after
commence by this government.
3 months after that.
What we know are lofty ideas. For example, he's told us that there is a massive macroeconomy. Now, that's a good statement. In fact, for purposes of confidence, that is very useful. The question is, what does it mean? When you break it down, what does it mean? When you come down to the issues of even macroeconomics, there is every indication that what we are doing at Central Bank and what we are doing at Treasury and what we are doing in the National Assembly brings into question what would amount to good governance and what would amount to a solid economic plan. Indeed, the question then comes in, where is the bottom-up transformation happening? It's not about a statement. It should be about programmatic approaches to it. So what I know is that the statements that Kenya Kwanza makes are very good, very lofty, and very whatever. But they remain just that, statements.
Okay.
Put some walk to the talk.
Okay.
Good discussion.
Let's have Amoratha respond to that. That these issues are serious. These issues should go beyond just talk. Whether or not William Ruto was in charge in the second term of the Jubilee, he was there. He has said himself that he was privy to even security briefs. He definitely knew the extent of the problem. When he applied for this job as president, he knew what he was applying for. He knew the extent of the crisis, and he said, I will fix it. He went ahead and gave even timelines to how soon he would fix it. This is 14 months. Most of those deadlines or timelines have expired.
From where I sit, I would say possibly. There was also the issue of when they came into power from after Kibaki, now with the President Uhuru, he knew the kind of economy they found in the country. His assumption would have been, because now he was thrown out of government, he will still start from somewhere where they left the country when he was thrown out. But now he comes in and finds that this thing is in a mess. So what he does as the president now is make a painful decision of that now we need to start fixing this economy. Maybe he had assumed that in the next 100 days we'll be able to do this, we'll be able to do that. But then you go and realize, and I would support my brother here who said that possibly this could have been the idea that We thought this is where we are, but we have realized we are way much below. We have to start from somewhere very low. But again, I want to tell ourselves, and I said this from the time I started speaking, right from the beginning, that let us be honest people. Let's learn to be honest. But you see, Fred, what is happening? These issues of economics are very complicated now to Wanjiku. You know, Wanjiku wants to, how much is unga? You told us this is going to happen. It has not happened. That is the language Wanjiku understands. Unga was 200, how much is it now? You told us this issue of border border, how much, how far have we been supported? But this issue of we are fixing the economy is a decision that the executive had to make, a very painful decision for now, so that later people will understand what we were talking about. Unfortunately, as I told you from the beginning, when we came into the era of Kibaki, there were no social medias and all those things that were giving right and wrong information. And people, and the president, even as much as there was a lot of noise and noise making from the same people, at least he had the time to be allowed to fix what he had to fix. But you see this now, with all this noise, and with the explanation that you have to give to people, even the conversation we have now, very few Kenyans are able to comprehend. When you tell Kenyans that they borrowed commercial loans and we are talking of concessional loans, Kenyans may not really understand that language. They're not even interested. Kenyans just want to know, where are we? What are we going to eat tomorrow? That is where we are. And now this is where we are saying, the president is in a situation where he had to make a decision. You either fix this country or continue lying and become popular also. But he had to decide that he has to fix this economy. And fixing the economy is not an easy decision, because the Azimio people know very well, they know very well how much they pushed this country and to what levels. And this is why when Kenya Kwanza came to power, if you realized, the Azimio people had gone silent because, number one, they never thought they would lose the elections, and they thought something... the elections have just been won by other people we never thought would win, we never thought would lose, and so they sat there and they waited to see what happened. Before they comprehended on what to do, it took them some time before they comprehended on what to do, because they had to look for a way of now starting to paint their lie to appear like now the lie can be pushed to the government now. And this is where I'm telling you that our people now are in a position where this conversation really may not be very popular amongst the Wanjiku in this country, because Wanjiku in this country is really hurting and want the economy fixed. And the president has decided we either fix it or leave the lie.
The discussion is still about debt.
Yes.
Crisis. That's the biggest thing they say.
That's where we are.
That is why we are hurting.
Yes.
That's what everyone is saying.
Yes.
In Kenya Kwanza, that you're hurting because of the debt crisis.
Yes.
Yet if we look at this, and the Eurobond has been mentioned many times, it's maturing and we are not able to raise the amount so soon. You look at the records and they say a different story. What exactly, are we splitting the hairs?
No, Fred, as Fred comes in, as Fred allows Fred to come in, there is something that is correct and true. We need to look at what our expenditure is. Let's agree with the president that we are spending so much in terms of debt repayment.
Yes.
One question that I want to ask them, so what are we doing to cut back our recurrent expenditure? What have we done? Nothing. This government is spending more on recurrent. It is too large. It is, our president is abroad with a platoon of people every day. The other day, a president in Malawi said he's banning himself from going out plus his cabinet. And any move like that actually saves government money. So I haven't seen any indication from this government that they are cutting back.
And there have been proposals, especially before the National Dialogue Committee, on how some of these ambitions, we can claw back on them, probably just to save Kenyans a bit of pressure.
Let me start from here. KJ knows in their plan, because he was actively involved. The implementation of that plan, they told Kenyans that there will be 100 days, short-term, mid-term, and long-term. Today, we are past 100 days. In fact, we are going past the short-term. But if you look at some of those short-term measures that they did indicate that they'll apply so that they can save this country from the economic mess that they claim they inherited, they have not done that. Again, that's a lie. But let me go back slightly to the state capture. They did tell Kenyans that they will form that in 30 days. It took, if you go to the plan, you'll see that it took them time. It has not been formed, but they're now talking of what they're going to do about it. Fair enough. As Martin said, we would want to see it so that it reveals the rot, and possibly if the money that was stolen can be recovered and be put into proper economic use, because the prudent use of public money must follow the principle of public finance. Now, the issue, Fred, is this. Our friends in Kenya Kwanza regime, you know, they say, Honorable Morad, they say that we never thought as Azimio that we'd lose this election. Of course we didn't lose the election, but I can also tell them they never thought that they win it because they never won it. So what is the issue here? They got into a space where they never planned themselves. They normally say they have a plan. They have never had a plan. What they've been doing, they've been planning how to plan themselves. Today, as we speak, the issue of concern is debt and taxation. Those are issues that are big and have been discussed even at the NADCO. But Kenyans are saying, what are the austerity measures that this regime is putting in place to ensure that even as situation improves, we can fit ourselves in this space?
Fred.
They are not doing that. They are not doing that. Instead, they live in the flight.
Okay.
Number two, if you look at how they conduct their meetings, they still believe that you cannot go to KICC or Kenya School of Government and conduct business there without spending much time. You have to go to Mombasa, you have to go to big hotels.
Allow me, because
of time.
Let me finish.
Some of the utterances he's making, actually, we don't have the time for you.
No, we also don't have the time for you to interject.
Fred, you'll allow me.
We've run out of time, so I'll give you, as you make this, it is your final comment. Yes, and I would want you to incorporate also the issue of the National Dialogue Committee, as the deadline is on Friday. Some of these proposals have been made before
I wished
the
I
National
finished.
Dialogue Committee. You'll get a chance to come to that. Everyone is getting an opportunity here, about 2 minutes or so. So you go first. There's the issue of ambition within the Kenya Kwanza administration, that if at all we agree that yes, we're in a bad situation, probably we should review some of the ambitious plans we have. A proposal has been made on the housing levy and say, fine, good idea, but probably we could wait for a few years instead of burdening the already overburdened Kenya. As you make your final comments as well.
Fred, you've seen what your namesake Fred is doing. He's talking generalities. The issue of governance speaks to very specific matters. He says that Kenya Kwanza, on one mouth, he says Kenya Kwanza had a plan, which was a promise, immediate, short-term, medium-term, and long-term. Then he goes on and says that Kenya Kwanza didn't have a plan. So basically, he's speaking from both sides of the mouth. But let's assess his line of thought and put specifics to it. On the issue of state capture, there was promise on state capture. Were the actions taken immediately? Yes, they were. Immediately the president got into office, the first official order of business was to make sure that the judiciary was staffed the right way. Remember, there were judges that had been politically kept out of office because of the whole issue of state capture. The president made sure that when he got to office, day one of office, made sure that these judges were put in office.
And that,
what did he do?
That became judiciary capture.
What did he do? You remember the issue that was there about the use of investigative bodies, including DCI and the police. What did the head of state do the moment he got into office? Something very few African presidents would do. He gave proper independence to police by delinking them from the executive. That was in the immediate term. On the short term, there were applications that needed to be done. There is an entire program on agriculture that is bearing fruit. You remember what happened with Galana Kulalu and the sabotage that was there. Today, Galana Kulalu is on its way to becoming a very big producer of food in this country. The reason why the price of unga is going down is because a decision was made. Bring in the right fertilizer, at the right price, subsidize production, make sure that the farmer can produce food, and that is why we are seeing a near glut in the production of maize. Why would Fred be laughing sarcastically? Because he knows for sure the harvest that came out of this season is actually exponentially higher than any produce that we have done in the last 10 years. Why? Because decisions are being made for the short term. In the medium term, the housing plan, I am speaking specifics. And I can even name names from Dagoretti. 3 groups were brought together in a pilot program on housing. A group from Dagoretti South constituency, a group from Kamkunji and Starehe. And they were told, come together and let us try out on this aggregation, standardization, and specialization in housing. A group of hustlers who are Juakali artisans. Okay. Facts, when they were aggregated to produce furniture for the houses, doors and windows in the trial period, 3 groups of hustlers were earning in the upwards of 150 million put in the pockets of hustlers who were in this housing plan when it was being piloted. Meaning what? That the Kenya Kwanza plan on housing, if applied, would bear the results that we need for the economy in terms of giving a solution to housing, but also providing good work. So when Fred says that there is no plan that is being rolled out, it is the generalities of the narratives that are being peddled. If we were to dissect it to the specifics, we would come here with numbers, Fred. But what I wanted to say is this. The long and short of it is that Fred and his ilk know that there is a Kenya Kwanza plan. They know this plan will involve change. They know change is painful. It does not come easy. They want to take advantage of this period of painful change to hype up emotions so that they can distract the application and the implementation of the plan, so hoping that they can derail a president who is working. The thing is this. The president is making hard decisions.
He doesn't know how to
making decisions,
and so that we avoid the back.
This is the long way I wanted to end it at. I wanted to say to all of us, doesn't matter which side of the divide we are, including the people who thread narratives, including our media. At a situation like this, what we are called upon to is patriotism. Okay. No, genuine patriotism and genuine patriotism, because if Kenya fails, it fails for all of us. It doesn't only fail for William Ruto.
Thank you.
It is in our interest to support any good plan that the government is putting, but also in our interest to critique objectively.
There's something
Fred, I would just want to conclude.
Because I don't want us to keep...
Fred, I want
if
to
the
conclude.
critique is there, let it be objective.
There's something like a conclusion.
Fred, let me conclude by saying this, that my final comment would be that the only thing that will help us as Kenyans is be honest to ourselves. The likes of Fred, who sounds a very smart guy, Fred, not you, the Fred sitting next to me.
He's equally smart.
Yeah, he's equally smart. The Fred sitting next to me, you even can tell, you can tell, even from the region he comes from, he's a very smart guy. Fred knows that we have a plan. And he knows very well, him and his army of brothers and friends, they know very well that what they are trying to do is distract the nation from the direction we are going to try to prove themselves to have been right. And what I'm saying to, what I'm trying to tell us as Kenyans, including myself, let us now stop looking at who is right and who was not right and who is doing right and who is not doing right. Let us look at a situation where we have to fix this country. If Fred would be honest with himself and talk on this national TV, he would tell Kenyans the truth, that from the direction we were taking, if Azimio took to power, we would be talking a different story in this country today. But now, because we have taken the right direction to save this country, please, Fred, tell Fred and his people, including the other Azimio brothers and everybody, that they should give us time to fix the economy and show them how a country is ruled, respecting everybody.
Thank you so much. I have the opportunity now to tell Kenyans the truth. Kenyans, this is the truth that KJ and Roy Murada is not telling you. A plan is an executable program with timelines and deliverables. Kenya Kwanza don't have it. They have a document on paper with the timelines that have not achieved. They had 187 total promises. They have only delivered 11. That is a failure. Number two, I agree with them that for us to fix this country, we want to be involved, all of us. When this country collapses, it collapses all of us. That is why we have taken it upon ourselves, Fred, to tell them the truth, that the direction you are taking is the direction that is taking us to the cliff. Please, listen to the people. Listen to Kenyans. You told them that there are certain things things that you want to do, you have not done. What is the alternative? We are here to help you, not to destroy you.
Okay, thank you. Finally, you get to wrap it up for us.
For a day when Kenya Kwanza will come and tell us that this is what thing that we've gotten wrong. They are always right, everything is okay, they have a plan for everything. So I want to tell you,
You're not giving us
they are human. Let them also come sometimes and admit that these are not practices of people. That said, I don't believe in national dialogue. I said that was a waste of time from the beginning. It's going to be a big waste of time, just like the Commission for State Capture was it is. We are not serious with ourselves. So on this one, I'm with my woman rep there. We are not serious. We are not honest with ourselves. So the national dialogue will produce nothing. It will be a good waste of time, and some guys will have made some money and some felt some national sense of pride in some talks. I know that my friend Fred has been part of it, but it will achieve zero. Back to where we are. We all agree that this economy can do with a little bit of all of us coming together and working to help safeguard confidence and to help build it. And we will build it, whether we are shareholders or not. We need every Kenyan. So this business of looking at some Kenyans in the face and saying, no, you don't belong, let's forget about it. We all are here and we are going to be here. Today is Kenya Kwanza, tomorrow we don't know who it will be, but Kenyans will still be paying taxes.
Okay. And that's the reason I gave you the last opportunity to wrap it up for us. Thank you so much, Dr. Martin Olo, lawyer and political analyst, Anne Wamuratha, woman representative Kiambu, John Kiarie, MP Dagoretti South, and Frederick Okango, Azimio spokesperson. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your very well-considered opinions on this matter. And thank you for also agreeing to come to TV47. As we wrap up, let me go through this editorial comment. Now, those who frequent the sometimes frightening streets of Twitter, now known as X, may have over the last 2 days or so encountered the hashtag Omtata Wajaba. The conversations under this hashtag are simple, vilifying and criticizing the senator for Busia, Okia Omtata. Omtata appears to have attracted quite a barrage of insults from those opposed to his latest actions in demanding for accountability from government officials on the controversial importation of 93,000 metric tons of diesel from Saudi Arabia, a consignment whose ownership is in dispute. This reaction raises serious concerns about the protection and defense of the right to question government actions. Omtata's standing and credentials are undeniable. It is undeniably well established. He has been a prominent human rights activist for decades. His dedication to challenging unconstitutional decisions in court preceding even his election as Senator of Busia in the 2022 elections. Omtata has consistently been at the forefront of safeguarding the rights and freedoms of Kenyans and has actively stood against injustices. His record speaks for itself, having sued over 1,000 individuals and making more appearances in Kenyan courts than perhaps any other Kenyan. He has proven himself as a stalwart protector of public interests. Rather than resorting to disparagement, the most appropriate response should be to offer transparent and substantive answers to the queries raised by Omtata. The public deserves clarity and accountability on matters that concern significant national interests. Criticism and attempts at undermining individuals who raise questions serve only to detract from the real issue at hand. We commend Omtata for his unwavering commitment to upholding the